knowing how things might work. So we'll talk through that. So let's start with why Agile. And I'm going to start with this chart here. It's a great chart. It says so much. It's called the Agile value proposition. And if I was to ask the question of everybody here, why is it we're doing Agile? Why are we upending things and making all this big change that we're going through? And probably the single biggest answer I'd get is that it's going to allow us to deliver faster. And I would argue that that's a consequence of doing Agile and being Agile. But there's so much more to Agile, and that's what this slide does. So it's easier just to jump into this. It introduces 4 aspects of a delivery: visibility, adaptability, business value, and risk. And all of them are interrelated. And it compares a traditional delivery, such as waterfall, to an Agile delivery, such as Scrum or Kanban or any of the others. So the dotted lines are waterfall, and the solid yellow lines are Agile. So let's start with visibility. So in a waterfall project, at the beginning, you're working on your scope definition, and you're going to be doing some requirements definition and some high-level architecture design. You're going to be working on your plan. You're going to be working on your budget, and you're working on all these pieces together. And visibility is high because everybody wants to know what the solution is going to look like, how long it's going to take, how much is it going to cost. So lots of visibility at that point. But then as you start getting into the project and you deliver, you get all those approvals for all that package you've put together, you start delivering, and visibility goes way down. And I think we've all seen that. So you're progressing along in the project, you're putting your status report out every week, and as long as it's got that circle with the green G in it, you're not getting a lot of questions. So in a waterfall project, visibility really does go down after that initial phase. And maybe as you're going along, you come up to a milestone and it's going to be tight timeline. So you might change the project to yellow or even red, and visibility pops up for a bit. But then when you resolve that, it goes back down again. And it's not until the end of the project when all that stuff starts to come together, and then you're starting engaging with change management and the end users and marketing and all those pieces that bring a project together. Then everybody's interested again, right? Because they want to know how this is coming into service and what we're going to do to bring it in.
Having a break.
Sorry.
Having a break.
In comparison, the Agile project is the solid yellow line, and we strive to have visibility very high throughout an Agile project. So as an example, in Scrum, we're going to do what's called a regular sprint review. So I'll talk a bit more about it, but we deliver software in small incremental pieces. And when we do a sprint review, we give a working piece of software and we show it to stakeholders. We might even let them put their hands on it and try it out. And the visibility stays high because we do that incrementally throughout the project. And they give us their feedback, and we accept that. And that leads right into the next one, which is adaptability. So in a waterfall project, again, I talked about how you're doing all that work up front and how closely intertwined it is. So that project plan and that budget and that scope and the design, everything is very intertwined, so that if you want to change something in a waterfall project, when you're first putting all that together, that's the time to do it. But once you get that approval and you start moving on the project, how easy is it to change in a waterfall project? I think we've seen it, like someone comes and says, oh, I've got this new piece of scope that we didn't know about when we started at the beginning of the project. And then you say, okay, well, we're gonna have to do a change request on that one, and we'll have to do an analysis. And we're certainly gonna have to rework the plan and the budget, might have to rework the design. And so changing in a waterfall project is actually quite an arduous and difficult process. In Agile, at the very beginning of a project, we recognize that we don't know what we don't know. There's lots of things that we're going to learn as we start to work on this. And so we bake adaptability right into the project. And so when someone comes and says, oh, I've got this new piece of scope, we as a team say, okay, great, we'll take that. And we put it into our backlog. Backlog is all the work that we're going to be doing. And we reprioritize it amongst all the other work. And you see that even late in the project, we keep that adaptability high. So someone could come with a change later on, and we would still welcome that and introduce it to our backlog and prioritize it with the other work. So visibility plays into that as well, because we have that regular visibility. When they come to us and they say we need something changed because they're seeing the solution more frequently, we're adaptable so that we can accept that change. And that plays into our business value. Again, in a waterfall project, all that work is done up front. And it's all very closely intertwined, such that in a waterfall project, until you package it all up and implement it, you haven't delivered any business value at all. Whereas in an Agile project, we're going to be delivering that software incrementally. And by delivering it incrementally, and we are delivering quality products, things that you'd be comfortable putting in front of an end user. So we're keeping the visibility high, and we're responding to those changes that the client asks for or the end user asks for, and delivering incrementally. We deliver business value much more early in an Agile project. So let me give you a scenario. You're maybe along at this point in a project, and someone comes along, and we've seen this happen before, where they say, okay, our landscape has changed, and we've got this new high priority thing that has to be done right now, and we need to redeploy some of the resources on your project. So we're going to put your project on hold, and we're going to focus on this other piece of work. And we've all seen that happen. Well, in a waterfall project, when they come by and they say that, you don't have anything of value that you could put into practice at that time. So putting the project on hold, and oftentimes that means that the project gets canceled altogether, you don't have anything of value. Where in an Agile project, we're continuously delivering software that we are comfortable putting in front of an end user. And so when someone comes and says, okay, we need to stop this project because we got something of a higher priority, you say, okay, great, well, here's what we've got so far, and this is something we're comfortable putting in front of an end user. And so in that way, you get a big return if that scenario were to happen. And then finally, there's risk, which is really the inverse of the business value curve. The waterfall project, when we kick that off again, our visibility isn't very high in a waterfall project. So as we go along, because we're not implementing until the very end, oftentimes on a waterfall project, we start to bring it all together, and then people look at it and they say, well, that's not at all what I had intended in a waterfall project. And that happens because your visibility is not very high and you're not very adaptable. That risk stays very high in a waterfall project until it all comes together and you finally start to deliver something. In an Agile project, because we're delivering incrementally, because we're delivering the most important things first, because we're closely working with the client and being adaptable, we bring our risk down really, really early in an Agile project. The other thing we look to do in an Agile project is do proof of concepts or any of the prototyping. We look to do that up front as well, all in an effort to reduce risk early on in an Agile project. So when I hear that thing that we're changing because we want to be faster, I really want to emphasize there's so much more to it. And that's why I love this slide. It's my favorite slide in the deck because it says so much. So because it does say so much, I'm going to pause there and just ask if anybody has any questions before I go on.
Totally agree. This really epitomizes what you're going to get from Agile. It's a great slide.
Yeah, I agree. I love this slide. Okay, so that is, I'm trying to emphasize the why of Agile with that one, but let's now talk about the being Agile. So we're going to start talking about the